So thanks for coming. What I'm going to try to do is, like it says on the program, is to connect the dots between a few conditions which seem kind of all different, but they're all coming from the same issue in the body. And we're going to try to look at ways of dealing with those conditions. And there's usually more than one way to skin a cat, so I'll talk about a few possible options. This is a little bit about me. I graduated from U of M here in both bachelor's and from medical school, and I also studied homeopathy. Most of the information, let me just get this. Most of the information you can find on this website right here. So whatever I'm talking about, there's some articles there and on my homeopathic website as well, which I will talk about later. So the conditions I wanted to discuss are those that do with mood, that is depression, anxiety, ADD, ADHD in kids, OCD, and also fibromyalgia and migraines turn out to be in the same group of conditions, as well as overeating. And these are all conditions that have to do with neurotransmitter imbalance. Just by nature of these conditions will require me to go into a little bit of biochemistry. So if anything is a little too difficult for you, please ask questions, interrupt me, I'll answer if anything's unclear, okay? So this is how I look at people when I see them in the clinic. To me, they are a little bit like computers. So as any computer, when they don't work, the computer doesn't work, you take it to a technician, and you would expect a technician to look at both the hardware issues as well as the software issues. So, for example, a hard drive doesn't work right, or the memory is shot, they replace it. But if they don't fix the operating system, if there's some kind of bugs in the operating system, then the computer still is not going to work well. So to me, people are a little bit the same way. And so different issues that I see sometimes are related more to the hardware and sometimes are more to the software. The hardware in the person, to me, is anything that you can measure, touch, understand with common day science, physics, chemistry, etc. So any chemical processes, any electrical stuff going on in the body, anything mechanical, this is all hardware. The software or operating system is the stuff we don't really understand very well. And we'll talk about a little bit more about it later, but that's where some modalities that are thought of as quote-unquote energy medicine modalities fit in. And I'll show some examples from my actual practice of treatment with both ways. So let's see. So here's an actual case from a few years ago. He was actually one of the two brothers that were brought in. One was with ADHD, the other was, had anger issues. So with this one, the issue was can't focus on schoolwork, restless, etc., the usual ADHD stuff. Poor grades, he's in special ed in school because of being unable to focus on these ADD problems. And the teachers want him on drugs, and this is very common. Teachers always, if something's not going right, they want the kids on drugs. So this kid received stramonium, which is a homeopathic remedy. This is what we saw. 3 months later, the special ed teacher comes into the clinic. She wants to know what kind of magic we do because the kid no longer needs to be in special ed. This is way faster response than I expect. Usually with homeopathy, it's much slower. But you see this kind of responses. But eventually, in any kind of a kid with ADHD, this is what we would expect. Maybe not in 3 months, maybe it would take 9 or 12 months, but this kind of reaction. Another case, this is much more recent. A 10-year-old adopted girl with ADHD, a lot of temper tantrums, anxiety, life and family very difficult. This one we started on the NeuroReplete protocol, which is more of a hardware approach. And this is the email I got from the mom a few months later. You can read it. Basically, mom is very happy with the results. The family life is much improved.
In the previous case, what did the stramonium do?
Fixed them.
Elaborate on that.
The kid became more attentive. The grades went up. He was able to be in a normal classroom.
Did it help the body to produce more serotonin naturally?
That's theorizing.
Okay.
Okay? Yes, and I will cover that. We don't know. You know, with homeopathy, the response, we see the response, but why this happens, we don't know. And we don't know how it works either. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes.
What did you say NR is again?
A what?
The NR?
NR, NeuroReplete. We'll talk about that in a minute. That's okay. So this is where the physiology and biochemistry come in. Because these are all neurotransmitter-related disorders, I'd like to discuss what those neurotransmitters actually are and how this whole system works. So again, a computer analogy. The brain is a little bit like internet, World Wide Web. Billions of computers. Each one of the nerve cells is a computer. They all talk to each other. There is a net. Okay? And the good function of the brain depends on good communication between cells. So this is a picture of one of the neurons or brain cells. So brain cell, oops, no. So brain cell has a body right here, and it has these tentacles, which are like wires that transmit information to other cells, just like the fiber optic cable in the World Wide Web. So here we create information in the cell, and then it's transmitted to other cells like electricity. So these cells that you see here, they're like insulation on an electrical wire. So here, the axon, which is the tentacle, comes down to transmit the information to the next cell. And this is the point where the information is transmitted, and the structure is called synapse. So in a normal brain, this electricity comes through nicely, and then it jumps across the synapse in the way that I will explain in a minute, and everything's fine. The synapse is actually the weakest link in the information transmission pathway. So the way the information is transmitted here, and let me backtrack, if the information is transmitted, no symptoms. If there's any kind of glitch in any particular group of cells, where the information is stuck, is not transmitted to the next cell, then we see symptoms from that group of cells. So we're interested in this particular group of cells that operates on specific neurotransmitters, which we'll talk about in a minute. But this is how the synapse works. So the signal comes down to the presynaptic bulge here. This cell produces neurotransmitters, which are these red things in there. They're basically molecules, messenger molecules, which are secreted or put out into, this pointer doesn't work, just a sec. Point options, no. Well, it just have to be. Okay, so the cell creates or makes these neurotransmitters that are in these bubbles, and then the bubbles open up, and it puts out the neurotransmitters into the synaptic gap here between the cells. Then the neurotransmitter attaches, these molecules attach on these receptor molecules on the other side of the synapse. So whenever there is enough attachment, the other cell reacts and the information is transmitted. They work like keys in locks. There's a bunch of locks, and we're putting out all these keys to open these locks. So as long as the locks are open, the system works. If the locks for some reason don't open, the system is not going to work, and then we're going to have symptoms from these cells. Why would there be a glitch? We don't think there's an issue with lack of neurotransmitter. The issue is that somehow the receptor is those molecules that the actual locks that are on the other side of synapse do not respond. Somehow they're not sensitive enough to the normal amount of neurotransmitter in the synaptic gap. This is a very important concept. Is this clear? Yes. And in people where this happens, we don't know why it happens. Why the receptors don't work, we have no idea. Maybe it's the toxicity. Maybe it's the nutritional deficiency that we had the keynote speech this morning. This was addressed. Maybe it's too much stress and somehow something happened. We don't know what it is. Could be, whatever. Well, we don't know what it is. As long as we understand the amount of neurotransmitter here is normal. Everybody has about the same. The receptor doesn't react to the normal amount. So, in the normal system, the receptor reacted. The presynaptic cell, the cell before synapse, wants to take back all the unused neurotransmitters so it's not wasted for recycling. So these red arrows here, this is the reuptake pump, which takes the neurotransmitter back so it's not wasted. That's in the normal situation. So suppose we have a situation where the receptors are not reacting as they're supposed to. What can we do about it? In our knowledge of physiology and biochemistry, we really don't know what's wrong with the receptor. So the only thing we can do is to increase the amount of neurotransmitter in the synaptic gap in order to possibly overwhelm the resistance of the receptor. How do we do this? There's two ways of doing it. Way number one, we block reuptake. So we block these red structures and we block recycling. It's putting it out into the synaptic gap, except the reuptake is blocked, so it's not taking it back anymore. So in theory, we're going to have an increased amount of neurotransmitter in the gap, and maybe the system works better. This is what the drugs do. Now, the neurotransmitters that we are interested in are serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. So serotonin is a more sedating one, calm you down, and the dopamine and norepinephrine are also called catecholamines as a group, and they are more excitatory. So the drugs, Prozac, Paxil, Celexa, Lexapro, Zoloft, Serotonin, Wellbutrin, etc. These are all reuptake inhibitors. So what they do is block recycling of neurotransmitter in the synapse. So some of them are more specific for serotonin, some more specific for dopamine or norepinephrine. Like, for example, Celexa is more serotonin selective, and Wellbutrin is more dopamine selective, and Serotonin is dual, so it blocks both. So these other ones, Miridia, phentermine, and fenfen, are basically the same type of drugs that are used for weight loss. Why weight loss? Because overeating, basically gluttony, is also a symptom of the same neurotransmitter imbalance. Here are more drugs, Concerta, Ritalin, Adderall, Strattera. These are more used in ADD, ADHD. So this is where the kids come in, adults as well. Now, Ritalin, for example, is a specifically dopamine and norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor. And not only reuptake inhibitor, but look at these again. Remember the reuptake pump? Not only does it inhibit the reuptake pump, it actually reverses the flow. So in the end, these drugs, Ritalin, Adderall, will probably, it's almost like squeezing the cell so that more of the neurotransmitter is pushed out in the synapse.
Does the receptor not become further desensitized over time from the increased amount of neurotransmitter?
Well, the question is there an increased amount of neurotransmitter? That's what we're going to talk about right now. Because what happens once we start blocking reuptake, we're blocking recycling, we're really not increasing making it, right? So what happens if you block like this? Inside the synaptic gap, there's another enzyme. It's called MAO, monoamino oxidase oxidase. Its purpose is to break down when there's too much neurotransmitter there. So we're pushing the neurotransmitter out of the cell. Maybe it works a little bit better because there's more of it. It's then broken down by the MAO, and no recycling happens. Eventually, it takes maybe a month, maybe 3 months, the presynaptic cell becomes depleted, and the drug doesn't work as well anymore. It's not because it somehow desensitized the receptor. It's because now we've depleted the presynaptic cell of the natural neurotransmitter that's supposed to be there. The drug is not going to work. That's why in a lot of these cases, depression, anxiety, ADD, etc., they start you on one drug, give it 2 or 3 months, it doesn't work anymore, they increase the dose. After that, another few months, it doesn't work anymore, they try another drug and keep trying like this. And in the end, what happens is the whole system becomes depleted. Okay, what about these 2 drugs? The same, they're from the same class. Methamphetamine is dopamine, norepinephrine, reuptake inhibitor, and reverses the pump as well, like Ritalin. And cocaine is a triple reuptake inhibitor, serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. Okay? So you can imagine from here that I'm not very much for drugs because of all these reasons. So what can we do other than medications? Let's say we can increase the amount of neurotransmitter that's actually made in the cell so it can put out more neurotransmitter. Then we don't need to block anything or mess with the body's system. We can actually do this. And this is where the NeuroReplete protocol comes in. So the neurotransmitters, serotonin, is made from amino acids, L-tryptophan, which is found in food. And the intermediate is 5-HTP, also amino acid. L-tryptophan is kind of hard to make and expensive. 5-HTP is cheap, somewhat. Okay, dopamine and norepinephrine and epinephrine are all made from the initial amino acid tyrosine. Again, you found it in food. Intermediate is L-dopa, and then these are made. So it turns out that we can actually load the body up with the neurotransmitter precursors, which is basically what we do is we take 5-HTP in a large enough amount and tyrosine in large enough amount, and sometimes we add L-dopa for specific reasons. And we add a couple other things, like another amino acid, cysteine, which is necessary here, and some vitamins, vitamin C, B6, folate, and calcium. And both of these reactions then go forward. And what happens is, then the synapses become saturated with the neurotransmitters, and the receptors become, the resistance becomes overwhelmed, and they start responding. And the symptoms actually go away. I found this system in '98, and I've been using it since then. I was the first patient in the clinic that I put on this system. My problem was gluttony. I was always hungry. And once I started on this, actually the first dose didn't do much, but the right dose basically made me normal. So I am no longer too hungry. I don't have to eat everything I see in sight. And I've been able to keep my weight down. Yes. We use it for Parkinson's, and with Parkinson's approach, we increase the L-dopa quite a bit. But in kids, we don't see, obviously, Parkinson's. But in kids, we use this for mostly anxiety, depression, ADD, ADHD, and to make them less hungry if they're overweight. And this is it's a very simple treatment protocol. We increase the doses, depends on the case, but there's a way of doing it. And sometimes we need to do urine testing to fine-tune the dose. That's where my expertise is to figure out what the dose is, and there's certain help available for all of this. Interesting, very interesting work, very interesting to do. Results are very gratifying, very good. Now, this is the little booklet I wrote on homeopathy. So now we're going to switch gears. We spoke about the hardware up till now. So now let's talk about the operating system. So when, again, I look at somebody where the receptors somehow don't work, maybe there's toxicity, maybe there is something else, but maybe there's some kind of a programming issue where there's a bug in the system and it's interfering with the action of body parts. And receptors are body parts. And this is where homeopathy comes in. So everything about homeopathy that I think is important is written in this booklet, which can be read for free online on this website, bookonhealing.com. Just go into the book, and it opens, and you read the whole thing. And it will take you about an hour. Homeopathy was discovered in 1795 originally, and the final work was written in 1810 by Dr. Hahnemann, whose statue this is, and this is the only monument to a physician in Washington, D.C. Homeopathy was very popular at the turn of the century in the United States and all over the world. The principle of homeopathy, similia similibus currenter, is what you see in all homeopathic books. All it means is let legs be cured by legs. Very simple concept. Somebody can't sleep. In homeopathic terms, they will be helped by a remedy that's made from coffee, right? So kind of counterintuitive, but that's how it works. We obviously need to prepare the remedies in a specific way. And again, we don't know why it works. There's no science to explain it. There's all kinds of theories out there, and I recently had a big argument with the homeopaths in town. They were all promoting some theory of explaining why it works. I told them this is all BS because we really don't know if this is true. The only thing we know is it works. We can see that it works by doing double-blind placebo-controlled trials, of which there's a few in my booklet listed where you could read about the studies. They're all published in reputable journals. But why it works, we don't know. At the turn of the century, there were homeopathic medical schools like this homeopathic college in Chicago. I collect antique postcards with homeopathic buildings on them. You know, this is one of them. Get them on eBay. This is how the remedies are made. You take the original substance, you dilute it in a certain amount of water, you pound the bottle like this a certain number of times, then you take a drop from there and dilute it into the same amount of water again, pound it again, and you keep on doing it. When you do this enough, you basically wash out the original substance. None of it remains in the solution. The resulting solution in alcohol is applied on sugar pellets like these. This is my first aid kit, and then you just give the patient the pellets. This is the math. You can see the more common scale is centesimal, where you dilute 1 to 100. You do this once, that becomes 1 to 100 dilution. You do this 3 times, it becomes 10 to minus 6 power, or 1 part per million. You do this 12 times, it becomes to 12 minus 24th power. This is above the Avogadro's number, and when you go above Avogadro's number, you don't find any molecules there anymore. And this is where, that's when people start attacking me, you know. They're saying, so what are you doing here? You know, is this all placebo? You know, are you a charlatan? Again, I have no idea how it works, it just does. Very simple. And we keep on diluting much beyond that as well. Truth is stranger than fiction because life doesn't give a damn about being plausible. Leo Raston. So this is my son. He's 2 years old. He's got a lot of fears. By the time he was 2, we moved between about 4 cities and 3 countries. I was studying homeopathy. England, India, Minnesota, Chicago, all over the place. So he's afraid, he's holding on to his mom's skirt. He won't leave her sight, okay? At this point, we're in India, in Bombay, and you go somewhere in a little rickshaw, these lepers want to touch him from outside. Not very pleasant for him. So I gave him stramonium. Stramonium is a remedy that's often used in cases where there's fear present. So the feeling that a person who needs stramonium has is as if they are a child in woods surrounded by wild things, and they're going to attack him, and he needs to protect himself. So obviously that wasn't appropriate feeling where he was at that time. His mom was there, and I was there, and we lived in a good place, and yet he's afraid. So stramonium, 1 dose. The next day, he starts exploring. He goes up to the 2nd floor. He starts talking to the neighbor kid, etc., etc. And that's all it took. Something else. A year-old child with high fever, recent in the clinic about a month ago. Flu. We have a flu now. Okay, high fever, about, I think it was about like 103. Gave a remedy pulsatilla to take every hour. They gave it for about 6 hours, no results. So I saw them in the clinic around 11 or so. I called them around 7 p.m. No, the kid is not better, nothing's working, you know, should we start antibiotics, this and that? So I go, no, wait a minute, let's try something else. So belladonna, a very typical remedy for high fever, every hour, call in 2 hours. The mom says it's a miracle. The fever is down, the child is feeling much better, asleep now. Call them next morning, fever is down, very minimal, like 100 and a half or something like that. Feeling fine. Over the next couple of days, this was over. So no antibiotics, no Tylenol. This was good. Very typical response. Sometimes I can't figure it out, and then I give one remedy after another, doesn't work. Sometimes this is what happens. It all depends on how well I understand the case. A 3-year-old boy with failure to thrive, poor eating, etc., not growing, not speaking. The pediatrician doesn't know what to do. Everything's fine as far as labs. So bring him to me. I take conditions where you don't really have, you don't understand what's going on. So the remedy is antimonium crudum, LM1. In this way, you give it every day. There's a different type of a preparation. So they started the remedy, and very slowly, over the next few months, eating better, stool is more formed, the diarrhea is over, the stool is digested, the kid is happy, not as irritable, starts speaking better, growing better, etc. This one is still in treatment, already a couple of years, but improving. Basically, the failure to thrive is no longer an issue. A 14-year-old girl with period problems. And as she turned teenager, the family is very stressed because as soon as she's premenstrual, oh my God. This was interesting because the symptom that guided me to this remedy had really nothing to do with her periods or her emotions or whatever. She was deathly afraid of needles. And in homeopathy, this is what we do. We're looking for things that don't make sense, that are really out of proportion, that are kind of weird, peculiar. We call them strange, rare, and peculiar symptoms. That's where the remedy is found. So in this case, this is what worked. Fear of needles, you look in the remedy, and it does have all the other symptoms as well. So you give it, and then over the next year or so, no more pains with the periods, feeling like the PMS is gone. She is not irritable anymore. The family is very happy. Actually, they quit treatment for a while before it was time, and she became worse again. So they brought her back. We treated again, she improved, and then after a while we stopped it. With homeopathy, the goal is to cure, not to control symptoms. Yeah.
So these remedies,
Yes.
are they chemicals? Are they enzymes? Or
The remedies are made from just about anything you can imagine. Basically, you take a substance, and the way to do it is you test it on healthy people, on volunteers, to see what it causes. And then once we have a picture of symptoms of what it causes, then we give it to people who have that picture, who didn't take that substance. So like I said, with coffee, you know, if somebody drinks too much coffee, they're not going to be able to sleep. Some people with insomnia will respond to coffee in homeopathic form. Not all. It needs to really fit the whole picture, not just one symptom. But the idea is that's the idea. If you give somebody arsenic in crude form, and this obviously was done you know, when people were poisoned back in the days, and arsenic was actually used as a drug as well at that time. The picture of arsenic is there are certain GI symptoms, and they have a lot of kind of nausea and vomiting and diarrhea, and emotionally they become kind of afraid, and they think that thieves are going to come in, and they're very nitpicky, and they want to, if something's out of order, they're really upset, they want everything to be in order. So if I see somebody like that who is, you know, locking their door every night, even though they live in a nice neighborhood, and they're very restless, and they have a peculiar thirst where they drink a little bit at a time all day, and then maybe they have some GI symptoms or something else. If I feel this is arsenic, then I'm going to give them arsenic in homeopathic form, and it's going to cure them. A 15-year-old with ADD, school difficulties, grades are going bad, hard to concentrate and focus. Teachers want to give them Ritalin. So we had a discussion with the parents. And the parents, they're not much into homeopathy. It feels like witchcraft to them. So they wanted something more biochemical. So we went to the Neurotransmitter protocol. So level 1 protocol. These supplements work very fast. Within a week, you see full effect of that dosing level. If within a week there's no obvious great improvement in the case, we need to change the dose. So this kid was lucky, that was the dose. He stayed on the pills. This is not a cure. So just like with the drugs, they keep on taking the drugs as long as they want to be better. The same with the supplements. We haven't fixed the receptor resistance. So we need to still give more, just a sec, we need to give more and more of these precursors or building blocks to make the neurotransmitters, otherwise it stops working. Yeah?
So if this is so effective, why don't more people do this and know about it?
Because it's not marketed properly.
Well, why is it?
I don't know.
Such a pervasive issue.
Dr. Hinz, who is the guy that is an absolute genius who developed this, he is a family doc in Duluth, Minnesota. He has his own company, produces the stuff, does all the research, manages and changes the protocol as he gets more data. And we kind of follow his protocol, and he's horrible in marketing.
What is his name?
Hinz, H-I-N-Z, Martin Hinz. His website is neurosupport.com, and you go ahead and try to read it. Yeah.
If somebody with ADHD had already been taking the regular pharmaceutical medicine,
Right.
would this work, or would that have kind of screwed them up forever?
It does change things, and we think that a lot of these drugs are neurotoxic, as methamphetamines are and cocaine. Nonetheless, usually the supplements work, and then we slowly wean them off of the medication. And in an ideal case, once they're actually better and doing fine and stable, we should really put them on homeopathy so we can actually stop the supplements eventually, you know, cure them. With adults, it's not so easy because there's a lot more solid or a lot more permanent damage there. But with the kids, it should be possible. And that's why I'm more reluctant to start the kids on supplements as opposed to homeopathy. I prefer homeopathy because it's more curative. and you can stop it eventually.
A kid who had been on drugs, you could go to homeopathy right away and you think it would have a good chance?
It depends. And that's where, really need to sit with the parents, with the kids, see what's going on, and really talk it over and decide what's the best in the situation. And sometimes it's something else that they need. Maybe their nutrition is so poor that they need to see a naturopath. It's very possible. And most of them have other issues. If, for example, somebody with ADD and asthma, definitely homeopathy would be a better approach, because now we're addressing all of this with a single remedy at the same time, as opposed to just dealing with emotional issue. If the issue is strictly just emotional, maybe the supplements are a better approach, at least to start with. It depends on the case, depends what the comfort level of the parents is. Another case, 17-year-old with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. Belly aches, out of the blue, they don't know what it is, but basically diagnosis IBS is basically we don't know what it is. And she has anxiety. Also decided on the supplements. Level 1 didn't work, so in a week we switched her to level 2. Within a week we have full effect. Very fast improvement at that point. The abdominal pains, cramping, all that is gone. Anxiety is gone, continues on the pills. She comes back, I see her in the clinic a year later buying supplements. I'm going, why don't we try to do more? Let's go to homeopathy, let's try to fix it permanently. Nah, not interested. Okay.
In this case, had they gone the route of ruling out Crohn's and ulcerative
Oh yeah, yes, definitely. Yeah, they had full GI workup, obviously, otherwise, how can you? But by the way, Crohn's and ulcerative colitis also respond to this therapy. Somehow, the gut operates on serotonin, it has its own nervous system. And in the inflammatory bowel diseases, we do see a response to the same approach. I don't have enough experience with it. I haven't seen that many cases, but there's many clinics that are using this, and we get data from all of them, and this apparently is very effective. This is a homeopathic hospital in Pittsburgh. So this was very serious stuff at the time. A little bit more kind of outside of our topic, homeopathy and epidemic or infectious disease. Very interesting. That's how homeopathy became so popular 100 years ago, is because whenever there were these bad epidemics, people who saw homeopaths did quite a bit better than with conventional therapy, and you can see the numbers. There are some articles from back at that time that are documenting these percentages. The 1918 pandemic, flu pandemic, where a lot of people were dying from the Spanish flu, so-called. The homeopath patients were not dying. This website, flusolution.net, we put it together with a friend of mine. And on it, there's an article from 1920 homeopathic literature where they're giving you reports from the field from all these homeopathic physicians. And basically, the death rate among homeopaths ranged somewhere between 0.2% and at highest was 4% in New York, while the conventional doctors were losing in their hands about 30% of patients from flu. So we treat all these infections right now homeopathically very effectively. So again, between the supplements and homeopathy, if it's definitely something to do with emotional stuff or obesity, supplements can be very effective and may be the right thing to do. In the long run, they end up being more expensive than homeopathy, but they are faster, and they're not curative. Homeopathy, much more difficult for me to do. I have to choose one out of about 4,000 remedies that's available. If I choose wrong, it doesn't work. So visits are much longer, more involved, but in the long run, less expensive and more curative. Now, obesity is very dear to my heart. I see a lot of people with obesity in my clinic. And there's a lot of misunderstandings. So I just wanted to run through what I tell my patients. Basically, we get energy from eating food, and we spend this energy by heating our body to 98.6 degrees or higher or lower, whatever your temperature is, and moving. So energy in, energy out, the law of thermodynamics, law of conservation of energy. If you take more than you spend, you're going to gain weight. If you take in less than you spend, you're going to lose weight. Foods. I'm sorry about the colors that don't come out well. Can you see that? Yeah. Low metabolism doesn't exist. Okay, you don't trust me? Okay, it's your issue. I can't help you then. But most people, adults, need about 11 calories per pound of weight per day to maintain their weight. If they eat less, they're going to lose weight. If they eat more, they're going to gain weight. And a patient tells me, I eat about 500 calories, and I'm still gaining weight. My answer to them, this must be coming from Holy Spirit. I can't help you. This doesn't exist. Types of foods. Carbohydrates, 4 calories per gram. These are sugars and starches. Proteins, 4 calories per gram, and fats, 9 calories per gram. So if you're trying to lose weight, obviously you're trying to reduce the calories. So the most efficient way to reduce the calories is to reduce the amount of fat. However, carbohydrates are very important. Carbs, both sugars and starches, will stimulate your insulin production, and then a couple of 3 hours after you eat, you get hungry again and you eat more. So if you limit the amount of carbs, you're probably going to be less hungry, and it will make it easier to lose weight for you. With kids, it's hard to put them on a diet. But at least you can try to kind of change what they eat. If they're on a lot of carbs, you need to try to reduce that. If they're on a lot of sugar, you really need to try to reduce that. If they are drinking a lot of soda pop, that's probably even worse. Just recently there were a few articles on high fructose corn syrup. Basically it's fructose, and the difference between fructose and other sugars is it doesn't make you full. So you eat a lot of fructose and you still want more. Okay? Apparently with regular sugar this doesn't happen. That's what the articles say. So that's why probably it's so bad for you. So for people who are trying to lose weight, I would encourage proteins, so anything that moves with a little bit of fat, and all the greens they want, because the greens have the fewest calories. And that's about all I tell them. I also give them this website, calorieking.com, and you basically can check all your food on it and check how many calories is in the foods, and then decide whether it's worth it to eat. You know, and basically it's cost-benefit analysis every time you put something in your mouth. Is it worth the calories? And that's what the kids need to be taught, I think. There's a lot of stuff going on about making them feel guilty or causing eating disorders, etc., by inducing certain thoughts. I think what the parents need to do is eat like this themselves, understand what they're eating, and basically teach the kids by their example. If the kid is very hungry and you can't really manage it by just manipulating the diet, I would really put them on the supplements and try to reduce the hunger. In most of these cases, they'll have other problems too. You know, a lot of them have ADD, anxiety, depression, etc., and you can treat the whole gamut at the same time with the supplements. Sometimes homeopathy works to reduce the hunger. It's not as predictable as the supplements. In adults, for sure, I found that homeopathy is not particularly effective in reducing hunger. I've been looking for a remedy for myself for forever, and not one of them was able to help me with that. But the supplements are magic. as far as, again, a little bit more on energy, so most of the energy goes out in heating your body, and movement is not that much. So yes, movement is very helpful, it's very healthy, you live longer, you feel better, etc. when you move more, when you exercise. But it's not going to help you lose weight. Okay? Don't even delude yourself. Running a mile for an adult spends approximately 100 calories. It's about the same number as a kind of medium slice of bread or medium apple or an egg. What's easier, to not eat a slice of bread or to run a mile? Okay? A pound of fat is 3,500 calories. So to lose a pound of fat just by increasing your exercise, you need to run 5 miles a day the whole week. Every day for a whole week, that costs you about a pound of fat on your body. Not practical for most obese people. And for most kids who don't even want to, run 1 mile, make them do this. So yes, encourage exercise, but at the same time, you have to manage what they eat. And if they are too hungry, you need to suppress it. That's my view on it. So this is obvious. And this is where to find me. And that's all I have. Questions?
Did you say there was a different website for the homeopathy council?
Bookonhealing.com. Homeopathy is bookonhealing.com. But you can also go to there from this website. Yeah? Question?
Yeah, knowing that ghrelin and leptin are involved in the appetite signals of the body,
Yeah.
hormones in the gut, can you address that in terms of what you know about homeopathy affecting those hormones or any other hormones?
Okay. Homeopathy, operating system debugging, and we watch results in symptom relief and in basically patient feeling better. We don't know why they feel better. They just do. So there's no studies to show that you give somebody a remedy and then you get a reduction or increase of whatever hormone.
I was thinking that it might be an interesting thing.
It is a very interesting thing, but
Like you were saying, we're not quite sure if homeopathy can affect those two, affect appetite. So I just was wondering.
right. It's a very interesting thing which costs a lot of money to investigate, which we don't have. And the University of Minnesota is not going to run a study on homeopathy.
Right.
Too bad.
You have nothing in your homeopathic meds that might give the same effect, let's say, as the neurotransmitters.
Right. Well, again, homeopathic remedies are submolecular. There's no molecules involved. So you don't find the same effect. The effect is on something else that is completely different from the biochemical products. How it works, we don't know. Somehow it changes the programming, and then the body starts fixing the underlying problem. So we don't really know what kind of biochemistry happens from that approach, unfortunately. Again, this requires a lot of money and desire to investigate these things, which is not happening right now. Yeah.
Do you know how they are absorbed? For the kid who had digestive problems, diarrhea, do you know where these homeopathy medicines, homeopathic doses are absorbed?
Homeopathic remedies, there's no issue with absorption. You put it in the mouth, they got it.
In the mouth. So the pill form, or how did this kid take, I'm just curious how they're taking these.
Those little sugar pellets, you saw I showed them. Were you here? Yeah, tiny sugar pellets that taste sweet. You give it to them, tell them it's candy. That's it. Or in some cases, it's liquid. It's basically drops that taste like water. And as soon as it gets in the mouth, it's done. Even if they spit it out, it still works. Yes?
I just wanted to, I'm one person, so, and N of one, but I use homeopathy and it's amazing.
Yes, sir.
Well, you mentioned all the different ailments with people that could benefit. I'm afflicted every night by dreams. How would this help me? Have you ever dealt with people that have a series of
It's actually in my book. Yes. I had a case of, he was 95 years old. He told me that he has these dreams, things are blowing up in his dreams. Just explosions all the time. He can't sleep. Or he can't, he wakes up. So this is a very specific dream. I looked up the dream in our database and found that nitroglycerin somehow is associated with that kind of a dream of explosions. So I reviewed the guy's medications, found that he was on nitrobid, which is nitroglycerin, for his heart. We replaced it with something else for his heart. Dream's gone away. Okay? So could be something's affecting you that way. If not, again, we take the dreams in as symptoms and then prescribe either a homeopathic remedy, which wouldn't be just for the dreams, but for the whole of you, or actually neurotransmitter supplements help people sleep. I don't really know if, as far as dreaming, haven't had that question before, haven't seen the cases, but they should probably reduce this dreaming and improve sleep quality. I mean, that they improve sleep quality, we know that. Because
So you would have to know the drugs I'm on to be able to understand what could be substituted.
yes, and sometimes we add. We add and then once you're better, then we start reducing the drugs that you're on.
It seems a little counter, or kind of not intuitive, that if somebody is hyperactive or whatever, you give them caffeine, I guess it depends on the age of the child, but to give them a stimulant when they are stimulated, I mean, it's like you're adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah, well, that's what Ritalin does, really. Ritalin is kind of homeopathic that way, but not quite. No, homeopathic remedies are diluted so much you don't have the stimulant. Okay, so basically it's like showing the operating system a mirror of what is wrong with it. So it's a matter of the operating system recognizing what type of imbalance or a virus it has, and then fixing it on its own rather than actually with a drug changing what the body is doing. This is a totally different approach. It's very hard to explain. Yes?
How do you feel about the stuff that Dr. Oz touts? Like green coffee?
Yeah. I'm not too excited.
Okay.
I haven't seen, I mean, for that specific thing really was on the news a lot and basically as an appetite suppressant. Green coffee is an appetite suppressant. I haven't seen too many people who would drink a lot of coffee and lose weight. Not really. I've investigated a lot of different weight loss products in my life because I have the issue, right? And I'd been able to lose weight and keep it down, but incredible, will exertion, okay? That doesn't work. Will doesn't work. So basically with the supplements, I found something that I don't need to use my will anymore.
It's very popular, and I know that places like Walgreens and other places ran out of that.
Yeah, right. Well, it'll last maybe a few more months, and it's going to go away. Yeah, and then there's raspberry, right? Yeah, and then there was some other herb recently. It's kind of gone. And then people were using HCG, and that's kind of gone. Nobody's talking about it. They don't work. Nothing works.
In fact, there's an ad on CCO radio to get people to buy green coffee as a supplement, but they don't tell you have to buy it before you are allowed then to get $1 back for every pound you lose. So it's kind of a come on, and it's on CCO radio.
Yeah.
Put under your tongue, the dry.
I don't know. Looking at the drugs, even drug companies spend a lot of money on making drugs, and then they sell it to us at huge money, right? Xenical, for example, that's a fat blocker, right? The way Xenical works is by blocking your fat absorption. When you block fat absorption, you get diarrhea because it brings everything out basically. So you get up off of a couch and you see there's a round spot on the couch. It's really uncontrollable. Xenical, I don't think yet. But anyway, the reason people lost a little weight is because now they tried it, they saw what happened, they quit eating fats. right? But then most of them replaced it with carbs, and still, even though they were taking the drugs, the weight loss in a year, maybe 9 pounds. Okay, that's not serious. Yes, ma'am.
I have two questions. The
Yeah.
first one is as far as treating the ADHD symptoms with stramonium. You said one time.
Please don't do this.
Well, I have a question. Was it one time and then?
In that case, yes. If I remember right, he needed another dose maybe in 3-4 months.
Okay. So if you have a questionable child of ADHD inattentive type, where would
Huh?
you start with them?
It depends on the kid. I prefer to do, this was kind of way back. Now I prefer to do a daily dose because it's more manageable. You can change a lot of things, and if there's any kind of reactions you don't like, we can hold back, change the dose, etc. So usually I do a daily dose.
So you would start with the homeopathy versus the NR?
I don't know. It depends on the case. It's whatever the parents are comfortable with. With NR also, another issue is a lot of pills. So it definitely works, but can the kid swallow, 3-4 pills 3 times a day? Pretty sizable ones. Some can, and that's okay.
Why is it that medical schools in the past, and this is kind of your experience, really thought that homeopathic medicine, like there were some schools in Iowa and stuff, was just kind of voodoo medicine, what have you?
Yeah, because of the Avogadro's number. Remember, Avogadro's number is 10 to 24th power. So you dilute the substance beyond Avogadro's number, there is no molecule left in there. So if you are only operating in the paradigm of chemistry, then you can't explain this. And when you can't explain this, it means it doesn't exist, right? That's it. That's the answer. So you need to say, okay, this is somewhere. First, let's see if it works. Let's do studies. Let's observe cases, etc. If it works, then that must be outside the paradigm of chemistry. That's it, period. So don't even make any kind of conclusion based on the paradigm you're operating in. It's somewhere completely different.
But everything is chemistry.
No, this is not. Somehow it affects chemistry in the end, yes, because that's when people get better, their chemistry changes. But it's not done directly. There's something else there that affects the body.
But ideally, it'd be nice if schools would combine both.
Definitely, yes. It would be very nice if schools combine both systems. Because how can you fix a computer without looking both at the hardware and the software? You can replace your hard drive all you want, but if you've got bugs in the operating system, it's still not going to work. Right? That's what I see. And most doctors don't understand that. But that's very important.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
I think you may answer this, but can you start the homeopathic medicine while you're on conventional drugs? Like
Yes.
Adderall and Ritalin?
Yes. Yeah, you can start it. Again, this is you can fix your hardware, but at the same time, let's deal with the operating system bug. That's kind of how I look at it.
So it'll still work even if you're taking other drugs?
A good remedy will work through everything. Steroids are supposed to be the worst as far as suppressing remedy effect. And still, somebody comes with asthma, you put them on the remedies even though they're on steroids, and it takes a while, maybe it's slower, but eventually you get them off drugs and they're breathing fine. Right?
Is there enough research, though, on some of these remedies?
In what way?
Well, in terms of the cause and effect and the curative, how does one determine what is the right approach?
What's the right remedy? How does one determine what's the right remedy? It's not about research. It's about the art of the homeopath. That's another problem. That's why we all try to learn more and more, and we read all the time, we go to seminars all the time, and we're trying to understand all these remedies at the depth, as deep as you can, because otherwise you don't find them. That's all. It's a lot of hard work. There's no research. There's no machine that will help you choose it. It's all art.
It's a leap of faith, though.
It's a leap of faith until you see the effect. Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.